Have you ever walked away from a conversation only to feel like you lost a piece of yourself? Even though you said everything, explained everything, stood your ground, but instead of being understood, you just felt empty, not defeated in logic, but defeated in emotion. Something was taken from you. You couldn't see it, but you could feel it clearly. The stillness inside you had been disturbed. Have you ever been there? Right in the middle of those who talk too much, too loudly, too aggressively. They interrupt you as if your words carry no weight. They smirk with arrogance and dominate the room with a perfectly staged, fake confidence. And you begin to doubt yourself. Is staying silent wrong? Is not reacting a form of cowardice? Is not speaking up the same as accepting defeat? But what if I told you that all of this is nothing but a clever illusion, that true strength isn't found in what you say, but in the reason why you choose not to speak at all? Nietzsche, one of the most deeply misunderstood thinkers, saw this clearly long ago. Those who need to explain have already lost from the start. And he was right. Silence, when understood properly, is not retreat. It is a cold, unwavering declaration. I don't approve anything to anyone. This is not a video about how to win arguments. This is about how to make others fall silent without saying a word. Not with shouting, not with reasoning, but with a presence so powerful, no one dares to underestimate it. If you've ever felt overpowered in a crowd, ignored, or pushed to the margins, then this video is for you. And if you believe that there is a kind of strength that needs no sound, no explanation, only presence, hit like to mark the moment you step into a new level of self-control. And subscribe so you don't miss this journey of rebuilding inner power, in silence, but with immense pressure, because sometimes the most intimidating person in the room is not the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who remains silent and makes the entire room feel it. Have you ever wondered why your silence makes people so uncomfortable? You did nothing wrong. You simply chose not to react, not to argue, not to fight back. You refused to take part in their petty emotional game. And from that moment on, something strange begins to happen. They get confused. They repeat their questions. They start guessing. What is he thinking? Why isn't he responding? Is he angry? Is he looking down on me? Does he know something I don't? They lose control. And you remain silent and in control of everything. You see, real silence is never passive. It is a deliberate action, a calculated strategy, a language only the strong can speak fluently. In a world where everyone rushes to speak, the one who chooses silence becomes the center, not because they're loud, but because they don't need to be. They make others speak to themselves. And that, more than anything else, terrifies people. Do you know why? Because most people don't speak to share. They speak to escape the emptiness inside, to escape the questions they haven't faced, to escape the weakness they're hiding beneath a mask of confidence. But when you go silent, you take away their last crutch, your response. And when no one responds, they are forced to turn inward, forced to face themselves. They can't handle that. And in that discomfort, they reveal their weaknesses. They say too much. They speak things they shouldn't. They puncture the mask they tried so hard to build. And you simply observe and wait. You wait for the right moment. This is the essence of someone who knows how to command a room. Nietzsche called it the mark of the superior being. Unaffected, unled, unbound by the urge to win an argument. Because real victory is not in defeating someone with words. It's in making them lose their own power in the effort to control you. Silence, when used correctly, is the ultimate form of power. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. Just show up and let your calm speak for you. And the most beautiful part, no one can take it from you. No one can read you. No one can use it against you. Unless you let them. This is where you enter the realm of the untouchables. Those who no longer live to be understood, but live to understand themselves. And from that point on, they become magnetic, not loud, but capable of changing the entire room with nothing but their presence. Silence doesn't just throw people off balance. It shakes their ego to the core, because human beings struggle with emptiness. We hate uncertainty. We hate not knowing what the other person is thinking, feeling, or planning. When you remain silent, you take away something the ego desperately craves: control over the story. And that's something they won't forgive. They want you to react, because only when you react can they be sure they still have an impact on you. Only then do they feel they hold the reins. But you chose not to play by their rules, and that throws them into chaos. It's like standing in the middle of a storm and realizing the storm isn't outside, but inside them. You can see this clearly in emotionally charged arguments. People yell, they curse, they say things meant to hurt, not because they want to be understood, but because they want you to feel pain. They want to see you react, so they can feel powerful. But if you just stand there, silent, looking straight at them, not avoiding, not defending, simply present with your calm, they will fall apart. Not because you attacked, but because they can no longer control you. You have stepped out of their influence, and they hate that more than anything else. In psychology, this is called deliberate passive resistance. You don't need to speak. You don't need to raise your voice. By refusing to step onto the stage they've built, you dismantle the entire performance they prepared to manipulate you. It's not easy, because inside, your instincts scream. Fight back. Prove you're right. Show them you're not weak. But those voices are traps. Traps disguised as a need to speak. The more you speak, the more you lose your power. Nietzsche once said, "The silence of the strong is what the weak cannot bear." Because they survive off reactions, they live to prove themselves. They exist only when others respond. But when you are silent, you shut off their entire power supply. You don't respond. You don't defend. You don't confirm or deny anything. And finally, they're forced to face the truth within themselves. Your silence becomes a mirror, one that is not distorted, not sweetened, not softened. It reflects exactly what they've been avoiding. And the truth is, many people can't survive what they see, so they'll try to pull you down. They'll use every trick they have to make you react. Cruel words, fake pity, contempt, disparate affection, all of it meant to make you speak, to drag you back into their game. But you are no longer that person. You now understand. Presence without words is the highest form of power. You don't need to speak to be respected. You don't need to explain to be understood. You don't need to win to feel worthy, because those who are truly strong don't need anyone's approval. They know who they are, and they know, sometimes, one calm look, accompanied by perfect silence, carries more weight than any speech. If you're still here, listening to this, then something within you is beginning to awaken. A voice inside, not loud, but steady, not rushed, but resolute. That's your awakening. And it begins the moment you learn to be silent at the exact right time. Have you noticed something? In a world where everyone is screaming for attention, the one who makes the whole room go quiet is the one who doesn't need to say a word. That person walks into a room, not trying to impress, not caring about who's watching. And because of that, every eye naturally turns toward him. Not because he says the right things, but because he doesn't need to prove he's right. And that makes him different. So different that even the loudest ones begin to lower their voices. Even the interrupters start to hesitate. The energy in the room shifts because one person dares to be silent without feeling insecure. This is not the silence of a victim, not the silence born from fear, submission, or weakness. This is the silence of a warrior who has moved beyond the need to react. That man is not pulled by emotion. He doesn't let other people's words define how he feels about himself. He is in control of himself, so no one else can control him. And that is the kind of power the world respects, but also fears. In Nietzsche's philosophy, this is the image of the Bermensch, the superior man, a man not bound by herd morality, a man who doesn't live for praise, who doesn't exist to please, who doesn't measure his worth by the number of people who agree with him. He doesn't react because he is no longer enslaved by his ego, and that sets him free, not just from others' manipulation, but from the old limitations within himself. He watches, he listens, he chooses his moment, and when he speaks, it's not to feed his ego, it's to end things, clean, precise, without mercy. But most of us aren't there yet. We're still easily provoked. We still feel the urge to explain, to justify, to set the record straight. And every time we do, we give away a little more of our power. That's why silence is not just about keeping your mouth shut. It is an internal discipline, a state of emotional mastery. It's not easy, but anyone who trains long enough can reach it. And when you do, you'll realize something. You don't need to speak to earn respect. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to win arguments to prove your worth. Because your silence has already made the loudest statement. A statement that says, I do not live to react, I live to be present. And that presence alone is what makes others hesitate. You are no longer the reactive man. You become the unreadable man. And when no one knows what you'll do next, they start to guess. When they guess, they worry. When they worry, they step back. And at that point, you don't need to win, because you already hold the power. Once you learn how to stay silent, you'll realize something powerful. Everyone is revealing themselves bit by bit, and most of them don't even know it. They talk too much. They over-explain. They add unnecessary details. And in doing so, they expose the very weaknesses they thought were well hidden. But only those who are truly silent can see this, because in order to observe others, you must disconnect from the need to perform yourself. Only when you no longer feel the urge to speak do you truly begin to listen. Only when you stop trying to prove something can you start to see people as they really are. And that is when silence becomes a weapon. While others are busy talking, you are quietly watching, not just their words, but their tone, their eyes, the way they shift their gaze, the awkward pauses, the forced smiles, the harmless phrases that hide heavy emotion. The secrets always lie in the details people assume no one is noticing. And you, the silent observer, hold the full emotional map of the room. You don't need to strike. You only need to know when to move. And when you do move, it's no longer a reaction. It's a decision. That is the difference between someone who's being led and someone who leads the game. You stop reacting like an instinct. You start acting like an artist. Precise, silent, and done before anyone realizes what happened. The superior man doesn't speak often, but when he does, every word carries weight. Why? Because he's been watching long enough. He doesn't speak to gain approval. He speaks to conclude. And the silence before he speaks is what makes others hang on every word. Never underestimate the power of a silent stare. It can force someone to rethink their entire behavior Never believe you have to shout to prove you're strong. The strong don't seek validation. They simply seek to be misunderstood less. If you master the art of observing in silence, you will never need to argue to know who's real and who's not. Listen long enough, and people will reveal themselves completely. All you have to do is nod and walk away. Because sometimes, the strongest move you can make is not a comeback. It's a silent exit they'll remember for the rest of their lives. Now here's a question for you. The last time you went silent in an argument, was it out of fear? Or were you watching to gain control? If you're starting to listen more and talk less, leave a comment below. I choose to observe before I react. And if this video is waking up a part of your strength you once forgot, hit like to mark the moment you took it back. Subscribe to continue your journey of rebuilding your power from the inside out. Because the one who knows how to be silent at the right moment will never need to ask for respect. Be honest with yourself. How many times in your life have you lost your ground simply because you reacted too fast? A challenging stare, a provoking comment, a condescending attitude, and you snapped back instantly. Because you thought, if I stay silent, I'll be seen as weak. If I don't respond, I'll be seen as a loser. So you react. You yell. You argue. You explain. But afterward, you always feel manipulated. That's right. Anytime you react impulsively, you've already been controlled. What makes a man easiest to control? Not lack of knowledge, not lack of strength, but lack of emotional control. And if you can't control your emotions, you will never hold real power. Because true power is not about your ability to strike others. It's about making sure no one can pull you out of alignment. And that is the real role of silence. Silence is not just a communication tactic. It is a deep inner discipline. It is a statement that says, I don't react because I don't need to. I'm not angry because I've risen above it. I don't need to shout to feel worthy. When you stay silent in the middle of an emotional attack, you are not weak. You are doing what most people can't. You are keeping your power. Let me tell you something. The truly strong are always the ones who stay silent the longest. They are calm while the world loses control. They observe while others lose their minds, because they understand emotion is a double-edged sword. If you don't master it, someone else will use it against you. But when you remain silent, you separate yourself from impulsive reflexes. You don't fall into emotional traps. You don't allow others to trigger your most vulnerable parts. You hold back. You stay patient. You let the emotion pass, like a wave that crashes quietly on the shore. And when you do choose to respond, if you choose to, it is no longer a reaction. It is a decision. And real power always belongs to the one who chooses how to respond. You can walk into a heated debate and remain completely silent, not because you're afraid, but because you know that conversation doesn't deserve your presence. You're no longer seeking validation. You don't need to win every small exchange, because you're playing a bigger game, holding your strength to win in life. Your silence is not a retreat. It is a presence, a force that makes others hesitate, a state that makes people rethink their words just because you're there, saying nothing. And the most beautiful part is, you don't have to be born powerful to master this. You just need to train. Every day, choose one moment not to react. Just observe. Just hold the emotion inside. Just listen, without the urge to speak. And little by little, you'll start to build something inside you the world cannot teach. Invisible authority. So ask yourself, when was the last time you stayed silent when provoked? And did that silence help you keep a part of your strength? If you've ever stayed calm while chaos erupted around you, leave a comment. I choose control over reaction. If this message is helping you become stronger day by day, hit like to mark this turning point in your journey. And don't forget to subscribe to keep discovering the inner power you were always meant to own. Because the one who can stay silent when needed will always be heard when it truly matters. There is a kind of presence that needs no noise, no display, yet it shifts the energy in the entire room. Have you ever felt it? A man walks in. He doesn't laugh loudly. He doesn't rush to speak. He doesn't try to impress. But the way he looks, the way he moves, the stillness within him makes people sit up straight, not because they're afraid, but because his inner gravity cannot be ignored. This is the kind of presence that can't be faked. It can't be performed, and it can't be learned from books. It only comes when you've mastered the control of your own energy completely. That man has nothing to prove. He has become what others are trying to become. And when someone enters a room with that powerful silence, the space reconfigures itself. No words are needed. No demands are made. His presence alone shifts everything. Why does this happen? Because most people enter a room with scattered energy. They fidget. They laugh too loud. They constantly adjust their posture. Their eyes dart around, as if asking for permission to exist. But the quiet man, he doesn't ask. He allows himself to exist. And that is enough to make others adjust their behavior. Do you see the difference? The weak need recognition to feel worthy. The strong are worthy before recognition comes. The weak need to impress to be noticed. The strong are noticed simply by showing up. So when you choose to enter a room with unwavering silence, you send a message without speaking. I don't need you, but you will notice me. Not out of arrogance, but because you're not here to impress. You're here to observe, to select, and to shape the space on your terms. You don't fight for a position. You are the position others must move around. And the most powerful part is, anyone can train this kind of presence. It doesn't come from your appearance. It doesn't come from wealth or titles. It comes from inner alignment, from having spent enough time in honest conversation with yourself that you no longer need applause from the outside. You're not afraid of being misunderstood, because you know, understanding you is their responsibility, not yours. You don't need to express yourself, because you already are yourself. And in a world where everyone chases the spotlight, the one who stands in the shadows often controls the light. Remember this. Presence is the ultimate weapon of the silent man. No words, no debates. Just enter and let your energy do the rest. And once you master this silence, you won't just be respected, you'll cause others to reevaluate themselves. Now ask yourself, do you walk into the world like someone begging for attention, or like someone who demands attention without speaking at all? If you're on the path to building this powerful presence, leave a comment below. I am silence with weight. And if this message has touched something deep inside you, a part of you tired of yelling just to be seen, hit like to mark your decision to live with more strength. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue exploring the art of presence, where you don't need to speak for the whole world to listen. Silence is power, but only when you know exactly when to break it. A grounded man doesn't speak to fill the space. He stays silent so that every word holds value. And when he finally chooses to speak, everyone is forced to listen. Do you know why? Because he doesn't talk often. And when quiet men speak, every word carries weight. That is the difference between someone who reacts and someone who controls. The weak speak to be validated. The strong only speak to close the matter. No emotions, no rambling, just one line. Enough to silence the room or make the opponent retreat without even understanding what just happened. Why is it so effective? Because before that moment, you've been patiently watching. You've let them expose their weaknesses. You said nothing, but you saw everything. And when the moment comes, you strike with one sentence. That is the level of someone who has mastered both silence and speech. So don't speak to win. Speak when there's nothing left to prove. And silence has already done the rest. Now here's a question. Are you talking too much when it's not needed? Or have you learned that one well-timed sentence is enough? If this resonates with you, leave a comment. I speak less, but I speak with weight. And if you're ready to turn your calm into real power, hit like to mark your shift. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part, where I'll reveal the most dangerous thing of all, when silence becomes a disguised trap. Silence, when chosen at the right time, is power. But if you stay silent, not out of control, but out of fear, then it's no longer strength. It's surrender disguised as composure. There are people who don't speak, not because they control their emotions, but because they've lost faith in their own voice. They endure in silence. They swallow their anger in silence. They accept being dismissed, manipulated, and disrespected. And they convince themselves that this is maturity, but in truth, they are living in fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of being abandoned, fear of making others uncomfortable, fear that if they speak their truth, they'll lose something: love, status, approval. So they choose silence, not like a warrior, but like a prisoner locking his own cell. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a value system built to justify weakness. You're not silent because you're strong. You're silent because you no longer have the strength to resist. You think you're restrained, but in reality, you are restrained by fear. And every time you stay silent out of fear, you break another piece of your own integrity. True silence should give you strength. It should make you stand taller. If silence leaves you feeling smaller, weaker, less alive, then you just sold your soul for a moment of fake peace. Ask yourself, are you staying silent like a warrior or like someone begging for permission to exist? If you're bold enough to face that truth, leave a comment. I choose silence as a free man, not as someone tamed. And if this video awakens something in you, hit like to mark the moment you began to rise. Subscribe to continue the journey into the depths of yourself, where silence is no longer an excuse, but a declaration from the one who stood back up when no one expected it. After everything we've covered, do you see it now? Silence is not the absence of words. It is the full presence of will. It's the moment you no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to bow to be accepted. You don't have to join battles you've already won within. True silence does not make you small. It makes you solid, more grounded than those who talk loud, argue, and seek attention. And one day, you'll look back at all the times you reacted, all the times you got triggered, all the times you fought to prove your worth. And you'll smile, because you've moved past that stage. You no longer react out of ego. You respond if necessary, out of clarity. You begin to see that silence doesn't weaken you. It makes you untouchable. And that is true freedom. Freedom from the need to please others. Freedom from the fear of being misunderstood. Freedom from the craving for recognition. Freedom from the insecure self that once dictated your every move. You are no longer a puppet of emotion. You are the one pulling the strings in quiet command. And your silence now is not a void. It is a statement, a declaration that says, I have become someone who doesn't need to speak to make others question themselves. Now here's your question. Is your silence today a choice born of freedom, or a silent cry from someone who's forgotten who they are? If you feel it's time to reclaim your inner voice, leave a comment. I choose silence as a declaration, not an escape. If this video has reached the deepest part of you, hit like to mark the moment you reclaim your strength. And don't forget to subscribe, because your journey toward true manhood, true power, and true freedom has only just begun.